Hey, hey, hey.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the On the Inside podcast. This is a podcast that we've started about a month ago. And we're largely discussing things like our emotions, different types of emotions. We started off with an introduction. Last week, we spoke about self love because we didn't manage to complete the second part of love. Which is romantic love, right? And that's something that we are going to explore today. Well, we actually named ourselves Sandbox. So you might be wondering why Sand, Sean, Emery, and Nico. So, hello everyone. And as some of you might or might not know, we are live on Facebook, currently on my page, as well as on the Inside Podcast page. So, if you are watching it from my page, follow us on the Inside Podcast page. We are also live on YouTube. And Nico, we are live on some other platforms with that are audio only, right?
Yeah. So we are available as standard podcast on wherever you get your podcast. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So if you wanna, available to listen to us live, you can listen on your own time using your usual podcast source.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why it was important for us to develop these audio only formats is because when I was previously doing Live Love and Lipidemia, we had quite a fair bit of feedback that people who wanted to watch us from their mobile phones, what they said was every time I lock my phone, the sound goes out, but I still want to carry on listening to you, right? So that's why we are on places like Anchor or on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Just look for us, right, on the Inside Podcast. If you can't find us, let us know and we'll point you in the right direction. Okay, to everyone who's watching, hello. I see some of you here. But the problem is I don't know who you guys are. So just drop a message, say hi, and let us know who you are. Okay. We have a huge topic today.
Yep, and Sean, you're the host, right?
Okay. Well, let's start with the most abstract question of all. What is love? Emery, our clinical psychologist.
Well, I'll let Nico go first. Come on.
Okay, I think that's you guys have like 3 hours. No, I don't think I could talk with 3 hours, but yeah, I mean the first thing that comes to mind is obviously romantic love, or maybe broadly like love in the context of like relationship, and so then that's really that bond really like between people, that gets to grow over time, and also all the feelings, all the emotions that come with it. I think that to me that's more immediate kind of what comes to mind. Yeah, when I think about love, that's just how we experience it, like with friends, family, partners, in everyday life, and also that can be broadened. So if we want a broader perspective, we can also zoom out and see that maybe there can also be love for obviously our pets. That's there's obviously love there, and more broadly animals in nature, and maybe nature, and even the planet. I mean, there's the universe. You can go as far as you want. That's why it's such a small topic. But really, so so I don't know.
Okay.
When I think about love, one of the first things is similar to you, right? I think of romantic love. Of course, there's all the other kinds of love, but when I think of romantic love, what immediately comes to mind are the very nice, very happy, very warm, wonderful feelings. And there's also the other side of things, right? Which is the not so nice when things don't always go your way. The sad feelings, the feelings of loneliness. Yeah, especially when on the other side, it gives you so much warmth and so much companionship. So the contrast of emotions is something that's very interesting to me, even though it's just like, one part, which is romantic love, right? Amerie?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get my earphones working. It's a bit buzzy at the moment, right? So you guys can hear me well, right?
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think that there are probably a few ways to define love. So love can be seen as an emotion, right? And I think also as a process. So how I see it as an emotion is, of course, like how we see happiness, sadness, anger. And, there's this book that comes to mind. I'm not sure if you guys have read it. Love 2.0, I think by Barbara Fredrickson. I think, Nico, you might know about this.
No.
We talked
Yeah.
about it before. This is like years ago, right?
Okay, it's possible.
What's that?
No, go ahead. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
so-
recall, but yeah.
Yeah, I must have had this conversation with you. But anyway, it talks about love as micro moments of connection. And the author argues that you can actually have love even, with strangers, right? Because it's really the micro moments of positive resonance that is the felt emotion of love. But I kind of feel like it's too simplistic. I mean, if we see love as an emotion, sure, right? But at the same time, love is really a process. The feelings, kind of like happiness and sadness, they do come and go, right? And what's left sometimes is, okay, you know what? You have to do the dishes together. You have to do a household chores. It's kind of hard to see that as romantic, right? And love is actually that commitment to say, yeah, even when I wake up and I'm not feeling especially lovey-dovey today, I want to do something nice for you because it means something to you, right? And I think that love as a process means showing up and being vulnerable and learning that you can count on the other person.
Well, that involves doing something that you might not feel like doing, right? And if you do that often enough, don't you feel like it's harder to be who you are, which is I'm the person that doesn't like to do dishes, but because the other person likes it, I keep doing it, and after some time, I get tired. It doesn't feel like me. What do you think?
So you're saying that you might feel resentful if you're doing things you don't want to do?
Well, it's just this sense that sometimes I'm not me anymore. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what I would normally do. I might not like to do the dishes.
But isn't love about compromise? I mean, at the end of the day, to be in a healthy relationship, right? I think it's important that, you stay true to your values. Partners stay true to the values and there is space to grow, right? And I think the compromise will come in place, not sort of in terms of, compromising on your own values, but really maybe the things that don't matter as much. I mean, like doing the dishes, right? I mean, both partners might equally hate it. And is that shared experience of, you know what, we're in this together. I think that's what's important.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think that eventually this comes down to values, right? Which is it's okay to do stuff for the other person to demonstrate love as long as it's not against your values. Nico, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, yeah, okay. So the question of value is important, I think. I mean, to me, what values are, it's like it's essentially a commitment to me. So it's like you commit to behave in a certain way, to deal with things with life or some aspects of life in a certain way, because you think that that makes sense, or that's a good way to do it, or like that's a way that works for you. And to me, values, they are not really useful when you are able to when things come naturally. For instance, like you can be in situations where you you act in agreement with your value in a way that's very natural. Like, for instance, you might be helping someone who's in distress, or you might feel like moved to volunteer to maybe help a partner, or in the context of relationship, or provide support. And to me, those are situations where you behave and act in line with your values. But I think in those situations, values are actually pointless. Values are really for moments where you don't want to do those things, or you're not able to do those things, or you're not able to prioritize those things. Therefore, moments where it's not natural to act in those ways. And that's why you can turn to your values and say, okay, I do not right now want to help. I'm not able to. I'm annoyed. I don't. Maybe in context of relationship, like we had a fight yesterday. I don't want to make any effort today. And I think that's when value are useful to kind of like have that mirror that says, yeah, but that's not how you want to be acting on the long run. That's not what you think is important. That's not how you think is valuable as a decision for yourself. And so that's why you have to overcome kind of your tendencies. So for me, that's one aspect of value, and how that maps on maybe the way you express love or the way you behave in relationships as well. And then there's that other aspect, which is, okay, but then what happens if you what you mentioned, what happens if you need to go against your values to help someone? And I think that's a very challenging area, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that cannot be dealt with unless there's like really open communication around values between people. Yeah, that's really, I don't want to say much more, because I think we can talk more about that. But yeah, that's where I would start. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's so much to talk about. Sorry.
Okay, so just before we carry on, firstly, thank you to the 10+ people who are here with us. Thank you for joining us, whether you're from Facebook or from YouTube. We have a few comments. One's from Jax. Hi, Amerie. Jack and Joanne here. And Jane's my friend. Hello, Jane. Thank you for joining us. And today we are talking about love, romantic love, and exploring these feelings and these emotions. So earlier we were speaking about values and the impact of values in doing things for someone else. And Amerie, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I often hear about clients asking, right, if there's such a thing as opposites attract, right? Because people think that it's important to find someone who's completely different from you, and that's how it works, right? And at the same time, the same the same behaviors they're attracted to are over time what annoy them, right? And they don't get it, because at the start they go, yeah, I mean, that was the reason why I was attracted to them, right? He was quiet and nice, and now he just doesn't talk when we have a fight. He just shuts down, and I'm not sure what to do. So the same quality that they were attracted to at the start became that one thing that was frustrating, right? And two things come to mind. One is that obviously fights are never really about the dishes or the fact that he doesn't want to talk during a fight, but it's something deeper. And the other thing is that I think you can be quite different in qualities or traits or characteristics, but what's I think important is that you're similar in terms of your values. Like, you care about the things in life in a similar way, right? And you're both committed to the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a lot of value in talking about values in a relationship.
Yeah. On the topic of opposites attract, right? I mean, it's one of those things. Since young, everyone was kind of wondered, like, how come all the good girls like all the bad boys, or the not so good boys. We always thought that, a good girl will like a good boy will like a good girl, and opposites kind of attract. But on the other hand, I think we are sometimes also very attracted to people who are so similar to us, right? I mean, sometimes when when we go and meet people, when we go on dating apps, when we go and chat with random people, what kind of excites you is like the first thing I feel sometimes, and what my friends tell me, it's this person is so similar to me, we can get along so well. And that seems to be the platform or to move up to the next level, right? Which is, I want to speak to this person a little bit more. Yeah, so sometimes opposites attract, and sometimes similarities attract much more as well, right? Don't you think, Nico?
Yes, I think to me there's like obviously there's very different area in which people could be different or similar. Like we mentioned values. I think I agree that common values are it's kind of an important thing, and my sense is like maybe when first meeting someone, or or first dates or whatever, you kind of probe for that. You kind of try to get a sense of like what those people are about, what do they believe in, what matters to them at that level, even if it's not really conscious, like we don't have an agenda. We are on that information gathering process to look for maybe those deeper kind of views and values. So there's that, and then my sense is that there's also lifestyle. Like I feel like for most people, especially for like on the long run, my sense is that sharing, like wanting like a common kind of lifestyle, it's actually very important. It's not for a relationship, that's not meant to last, but I think for a very long, someone looking for maybe a longer term relationship, like just things like, how would you like to live? Like, where would you like to live? What kind of environment? How big a family? If you even want a family, how important should friends be? How present should the, each person's parents be? All those things are like in terms of like how you want life to organize itself. I think these are things where we tend to naturally try to seek similarities, I feel.
But Nico, at what point do you start asking those questions, right? Because if you meet someone on the very early stage, you're just trying to get along before you ask this slightly more serious, settling down kind of questions, right?
Like I don't think you need to ask those questions. Well, okay. I mean, there's a point where you're going to have to ask those questions, like if there's the discussion around commitment and so on. But I think early on, we still kind of get a feel for it. Like for instance, like what kind of living environment would the other person would like? Then to me, it's kind of like it's about leisure as well. So you get to learn pretty early about what kind of leisure the person like. Is that someone who's very active or prefer like staying indoors? Those things unconsciously give information about the kind of life that people want to have on the long run as well. Would you be going to the gym, or I don't know, spending all your vacations doing outdoor sports, or do you want a very cozy place, in a cabin somewhere and just don't move for a week? So these are things that are like on the long-term relationship are really not really compatible, in terms of, or actually are challenging to make work in that sense. Yeah.
So it's definitely easier to have common interests. Common, like, if both people like sports, that's definitely helpful, right? Because at least that's something that you kind of agree on already. But Amerie, I just wanted to gather your thoughts. Do you think that this is a necessity, or is it a good to have?
It's a good to have. Yeah, I can finally hear you guys now. So I just changed my earphone. Sorry if I missed out on earlier conversation.
No worries.
Yeah, but I think that, it is a good to have. It's not necessarily like a crucial ingredient, because I think that ultimately what's most important is the sense of openness and curiosity about the other person's lifestyle. So for instance, if my partner and I do different things, but I'm open to try what, they are doing, then, it works, right? Because I'm participating and we're having shared experiences anyway. And in fact, it could also broaden my own life experiences. So, that's great. And it probably only is a problem if you are a little bit more closed off, you're not as willing to try, or, you want to stay in your comfort zone a little bit, right? And that's when you find, okay, we don't have as many opportunities for shared experiences because we don't have interests that sort of overlap, and that's how you sort of start to realize that because you have fewer opportunities to get together and share, right? There's also that maybe sense of disconnection over time as you sort of go into your own sort of separate worlds, as opposed to sort of coming together.
What do you mean by the last part, going into your separate worlds?
Well, the thing is this, I mean, if you find that, okay, I'm holding on really tightly to my own interests and your partner is doing the same thing, right? There's less sort of coming together. Yeah. And the thing is that, to really build a relationship that's healthy, right, there has to be also time for play, right? And I think often people don't see that as an important thing because we get caught up in our lives and, we're working, maybe, spending time with family, but not really that couple time for play, right? And this would involve sort of having new experiences together, and it requires a sense of openness and curiosity that I talked about.
Well, on that topic, if a person has different interests and different things to do, right? We said we have work, we have family, etc. That brings another issue of priorities, right? Because I think that there are some couples that, like the other person has to be the top priority. If not, they find like, how come that like something else is more important than me? It reminds me of the time where I used to say that if someone that I was dating asked me, squash or me more important? And my typical reply would be, do you want the honest answer or do you want the correct answer?
And what would you say, Sean?
Sorry?
What would your answer be?
Which one?
So after you say that, and
Yeah.
and then the person replies, and then what do you say to that?
Oh, usually they'll just be pretty upset because
I
they know what's coming without me having to say it. But the question is this, right? Is it critical that your partner should be the top of your priorities? Nico, what do you think?
I think it depends. Like, I don't think there are really rules, actually. So that's kind of hard to say things that are really general, like about that. Like, in that sense, is that does it have to be the case? No. Like, anything is possible in relationships. Like, I don't think there's rules. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, like some people will, and that's the absolutely sane decision, like to prioritize a career over any kind of like relationship, for instance. Mm-hmm. Like some people might consider that, it hasn't been my personal stance or my experience, but I've talked to people and it might be like, my career is the most important thing, I've built it from scratch and there's nothing that I would let my, compromise it for. Not a relationship, not friendship, and sometimes not even family, actually. And often, I mean, it might be people who have a very specific, personal history. Maybe some of them might be coming from more difficult circumstances, and they kind of manage to build themselves up, and they don't really want to let that go. And that makes total sense. So in that circumstances, there's no way they might be able to prioritize a relationship over their career. At least at some point in their life, then there might be moments in life where they reach a sense of safety, and then they can relax and have more space, and they want to invite in something else, and then their priority change. Actually, I have a specific story about a friend who met someone. Both of them were a bit older, and so the first time I met them. Is now they're not married, but they've been together for a long time. So then is now girlfriend, partner. She told me. So I asked her, what do you do? And she said, oh, I'm a career woman. Like, I live for my career, and And that makes sense. And in history, she wasn't into a lot of relationships, and she was fully committed to her work. And then we had a similar conversation. It was 4 or 5 years after that, and she completely changed her outlook. And now her life was all about them, finding a flat and taking care of the flat. And she didn't mention her career at all. And she told me like, "Oh, my career is on the back burner. I realized it was very demanding. I didn't finding as fulfilling." So all those things are even, they change over time. So it's hard to even say something general for one person. Like, this is how you what will work for you, I feel. Yeah.
Amerie,
Mhm.
your other partner, a priority? Is that important? A top priority, is that important?
So I need to answer this in the context of, I guess, the relationship, right? Because I think it really depends on the kind of relationship we both want to have. So for instance, it also depends on, I guess, the stage of life we're at, right? Maybe when when we're a lot younger and, there's more sort of time and space to explore the world, right? Perhaps, we could have an understanding that, we spend, this amount of time with each other, but at the same time, you want to have that space to explore. You want to, do your own things with your friends, your own family, right? And again, I think it really goes back down to that understanding, the agreement between partners, that this is how it looks like. So I don't know if there's such a thing as, top priority. I don't know if it makes sense sort of in a generic way, but I do think that it's important both partners agree that this is how it looks like, right? To really show up for the other person. I find the word priority a little bit, it's tricky, right? Because, if you were to start ranking, right, someone's going to get upset in a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And the thing is, it also really depends on the time period, right? I mean, if this is kind of like a lull period at work and I have a little bit more time and space, of course I could prioritize, right? And so it's really about the flexibility and understanding. I feel that that's more important than kind of saying, okay, you're my top priority always and forever. I think that's a bit unrealistic. Yeah, and I think the other thing that comes to mind as I talk about this is also the idea of attachment. When you have more securely attached partners, um, a sort of issue like that, maybe a bit of a crisis, when one partner is a bit busier and the other suddenly feels like, oh, they're not showing up as much, right? Someone who is securely attached in a relationship wouldn't go, okay, they're going to abandon me now, or they must be cheating on me. They're more likely to just, be understanding, give the partner a benefit of the doubt, and go, yeah, they're probably just, going through a hard time at work, and, they're probably a little bit less available, but that's okay because I know they will come back anyway.
And I think it's interesting because when that brings on to the next point of discussion, which is this issue of insecurity, isn't it? Because I think a lot of couples, how should I put it? Okay, so the first time I kind of felt this, kind of experienced this thing about insecurity is when someone is very clingy. Correct? And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's just one particular character, right? And when I experienced it, and we spoke about it, in the past relationship, and we discussed this, the conclusion came that she said she felt she was insecure. All right. So when it comes to insecurity, do you think that this is a sign of a lack of trust, or could there be some other reasons? What do you think? Who wants to go?
This is
I think Amerie should go first.
This is a super complex question. I think, Nicole,
Mm.
you would agree. I mean, it goes back all the way to even like your childhood experiences. I mean, if we were to sort of, delve into attachment theory, what attachment theory suggests is that the kind of attachment we had with our primary caregivers would very much influence our romantic relationship styles as well. And for instance, if you had caregivers who were consistent, who were, emotionally available, right, you would grow up to be more likely securely attached to your partners. On the flip side, if you had caregivers who were inconsistent, or if you had gone through some very traumatic experiences as a child, it is harder then to get the sense of secure attachment in your relationships later on in life. And um, the thing is that, it's often easy to slip into this idea that, okay, that's it, I'm doomed. If I had like really crap relationships in the past, then I'm gonna have crap relationships in the future. That's not very true, because there is an idea of earned security, right? For instance, if you could have had a really difficult childhood and had really insecure relationships with your caregivers, but along the way, if you do meet a partner who gives you a sense of security, right, you would learn that actually you're able to trust that person. You're able to also rely on yourself, right? And that relationship actually is a very like a transformative experience, as you learn that there are relationships you can trust in this world. Yeah. So I mean, this is a really fascinating field, right? And often, when I work with relationships, this is something that always comes up, this idea of attachment. And we can go on and on about it, but the premise is that if we want to think about a secure relationship, really what we're looking at is the sense of attachment. And to be securely attached means being able to see your partner as a safe haven, someone you go to when things go bad, right? And a secure base. So, a place where you could explore freely and know that's okay.
Thank you. Nico, thoughts?
Yeah. So so the thing that I found interesting in the bit you shared was really how then your partner had that awareness, that she reached that awareness that there was, I forgot how you framed it, but that the clinginess came from insecurity, I think you said. And I think that's another way of working through those issues in relationships, like patterns we all have in the way we behave in relationships. Like really be very attentive to what's going on with ourselves. Like, when we experience suffering, when there's difficulty, when there's sense of insecurity, when there's that fear that the person might leave us, or and I think it's natural. Like the first reflex would be to look outside. I mean, essentially try to check what the partner is doing, what's going on with the behavior of the partner, what's up, he or she is moving away, or on the other hand, is he or she too smothering? So there's this sense of like trying to look out for what's going on outside in the partner, to try to fix how we feel. And I think that's totally useful, and because sometimes there can be really issue with the partner behavior. But I feel that as grown adults, we can get to a place where we learn that there's almost someone else that can care for ourselves inside as well. Like we don't always have to look for outside for solution to problem relationships. They can also be something to be learned in turning outside, as your friend did, like in the sense being like, oh, okay, I'm clingy, but there's this insecurity, and then dive in, like why do I feel insecure? Like what that emotion? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? And I think through that process we can, and that can be guided also, or be done with a friend, but we can reach to a place where we learn to care for those emotions that we carry, and then reach a place of self-compassion where actually we almost like become a parent or a partner to ourselves. You get what I mean?
I agree.
So
I agree.
we can be that parents that we didn't have for some of us, and I'd be like, oh, you're hurting, and I'm gonna try to learn more about why you're hurting, how that feels like, and what we can do about it. And you can do that to yourself. You doesn't have to expect your partner to do it for you. And that's great if they do, as Amerie said, you can then build up trust with someone. But there's also something that can be done on your own there.
Yeah.
And that's very empowering as well, in a sense. Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because I think, sometimes when I have clients really struggling with this idea of leaning on someone or learning to trust their partners, right? There's often this idea that to be independent means I need to shut everyone out, right? It's a very all or nothing way of seeing relationships. Like if I were to count on someone, it means I'm dependent and that's bad, right? But the truth is that, in a healthy relationship, you want to be able to count on yourself and to learn that it's okay to also count on someone else. And that's kind of the balance we're looking at.
And a lot of that comes with a higher level of awareness. I mean, that's just what Nico said, right? And the thing is that if, let's say, they are aware of how they are feeling in relation to various circumstances, what can they do about it? All right. So what if they are aware? So I mean, it goes back to this point where can I feel this sense of security? Is it something that can be learned or be trained in, or is it something that if a person comes by somehow and I'm lucky, this person gives me that sense of security because I kind of feel like this special person, I can trust him or her. What do you think? Can this sense of security be trained or learned?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, in both ways, like through, your own practice and, even this transformative experience with a secure relationship, I think, all these experiences will add up to help you get there, right? I mean, if you have a partner who is willing to learn with you or who is secure, there is this idea of co-regulation in a relationship that makes it really helpful, right? Because if you find that your relationship is a safe space, it's a safe place, you can be who you are, you're already learning that, it's okay, right? The world is okay, right? And you're okay. And, on your own, even without a partner, right? I mean, there's so much work we can do with ourselves. Learning to be self-compassionate, like what Nico said, that's really important. Learning to be a little bit more aware, learning about, things you stand for, your values, right? And realizing that at the end of the day, no one can take that away from you. I mean, this is all your own growth. So I think it's both through yourself and through a healthy relationship that, we can learn to be more secure.
Nico, what do you think? Security, can it, this sense of security, can it be learned?
I think so. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think yes. I don't know if I would. Well, no. There's techniques, and you can be guided into working through those. But in a sense, I feel almost like to learn that sense of security, you must be willing to be insecure in a deeper sense. Like, for instance, because one obstacle. So if I think about it, it's like one obstacle to really being clear about how you feel in a relationship. Like, for instance, you're insecure, but why do you feel insecure? Maybe there's suffering underneath. There's a sense already of abandonment. There's something there that triggers those kind of thoughts and behaviors. But I feel like there's always that sense that just looking at how we feel might threaten the relationship. So there's kind of like this double bind where you can never look at how you feel, because it's like, if what I feel means that the relationship is not right for me, then it means I'm gonna have to let go of the relationship. You get what I mean? So there's some sense of like a danger almost in looking at how really genuinely how we feel. And I think that's an obstacle in looking. So it's hard to say. So when we focus on trying, I want to be secure in a relationship, I want a stable relationship, sometimes that can be an obstacle. It can be a secure relationship, but then I think that sense that you want to preserve relationship at all costs means that you will shut down and not look at how you feel genuinely. And how you feel, because if you really get connected with how you feel in certain circumstances, that can be worked through with your partner and so on, just expressing it, solving issues. But in other circumstances, you're going to have to maybe end the relationship, take more drastic measures. But whether it's talking to a partner, solving the issue, if it's minor, whether it's like ending the relationship, the issue is like really feeling how we feel behind those behavior or being insecure, it puts us in a place of like responsibility. Like once you really feel it, you're responsible for it, and you're gonna have to do something about it. You cannot shut it down anymore once you're aware of it. So we always tend to stop like one step before and not allow ourselves to really feel that, so we don't have to take responsibility. If that makes sense. And just like rolling along. I think things are fine. The relationship is fine at the surface, but then doing that, we don't really deal with like deeper issues.
Yeah.
And,
So I think
we miss out, I think. Yeah.
What Nico, you're trying to say is you can't be avoidant, right? You can't be emotionally avoidant, and I think again, it's this idea of being vulnerable in a relationship, because to be, I guess, truly secure, you have to talk about the hard things, rather than avoid the hard things, just to avoid conflict, right? I mean, a lot of people assume that avoiding conflict is important to a healthy relationship, but actually that's not true. Actually, studies have shown that if you have little sort of what do we call that, disagreements, right, and you talk about them often before they explode and escalate and become resentment, you're more likely to have a healthy relationship, in fact, right, when you don't allow any of these things to fester. Yeah, so it's actually good to be aware, right, and to talk often, because that's actually how you could keep away this feelings of resentment that will brew up, if you just completely ignore
Okay.
the dissatisfaction.
Yeah. Well, just one more question to follow up on that before we go into one of the comments from Jack. So I just want to ask, I mean, Amerie, if you say that it's important to have these conversations, firstly, these are difficult conversations, right? And there will be some who might feel like, I'm not an extrovert. I am not the kind that I am very open about my feelings. Right? Like for me, if I'm upset, I'm okay with going on social media and saying something. But not everyone is okay with that. And because they are not so expressive, and it could be for a multitude of reasons, right? Character, language, personality, whatever. Right? But if it's difficult for them to be able to express how they feel. How doesn't that make it more difficult for them to have these difficult conversations?
Probably. Depending on how difficult it is, sometimes they might seek external help, maybe through, sessions with a therapist or a counselor, right? If it's really a huge problem. But otherwise, this is when the partner could be really helpful, right? Because when you sense some sort of a threat, a perceived threat in a relationship or during a conflict, especially, you shut down and you suddenly, don't know what to do, right? But if you feel safe with your partner, that's also when you're allowing yourself more space to explore what's going on for yourself. And that's when you're freed up also to just maybe express how you feel. Because a lot of times it's not that people, are not good at expressing themselves, but there's some sort of underlying block or fear that stops them from, just really showing up and being vulnerable. And when people are safe, even the most introverted of people, right, would be able to share some things about their internal experiences.
Nice. So it sounds like it's an issue of being comfortable with vulnerability.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
I'd like to add something, because there's a sense that, because we tend to think like people who are able to communicate a lot in a relationship are better at relationships. I think that's really not true. So in the sense, like someone might be very vocal in a relationship, express needs, but the needs might not be very deep needs. They might be very surface, kind of almost irrelevant needs that are irrelevant to deeper issues. And there might be people who are very expressive relationship, very open to talk about issues, but those might not be the real issues. And it can be very difficult for them to actually voice those deeper issues. I don't know if that makes sense. So I don't think it's, what I want to say is that there can be as much, like even people who are not comfortable sharing feeling in relationship have ways to communicate how they feel. And sometimes it's not like you would see in movies where, like stereotypical American movies where maybe, the person, one partner will show up, sit at the table and, hey, we need to talk, No, I mean, sure, that can look like that, but there's moments where, in relationship, there's moments where communication can happen. Sometimes it's tense. Sometimes there's no connection between partners. But sometimes there are moments where, both partners are relaxed, they're doing an enjoyable activity, there's openness there, and then things can be shared in those moments. And that also means that when things can be shared, it doesn't need to be done like right away in a minute. Like you realize something is wrong and you have to walk up to the person right away and, just state how you feel. No, I mean, there's also a time to share. And there's really time when there are those times in a couple when people who are not comfortable sharing openly, on a daily basis can do that. Yeah. And sometimes in ways that are not through words.
Agreed.
Yeah. So timing is important, and just now as you were sharing, what came to mind is when someone says, "Hey, we need to talk," that scares the shit out of me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, horrible way to start those conversations.
Okay. Before we go on to the comment, I'd just like to thank the 9 people who are still with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Wherever you are tuning in from, it could be pretty late for you. So thank you for joining us. It's really nice to have you in this conversation. Jack says, how to practice self-love in a relationship, right? Let's just show it right here. How to practice self-love in a relationship. There will be times when I feel burnt out, right? And this is quite interesting because self-love is a topic that we discussed not last week, but 2 weeks ago. But now self-love in a relationship, right? Any thoughts? Amerie?
Sean,
Yes?
what do you think?
Self-love in a relationship?
Yeah.
I think self-love in a relationship for me involves being open with your needs, finding a way to convey those needs, whether it's through words or through action. Because I think if at some point everyone has their own needs. I mean, we do things for other people. We do things to cater to someone else's needs, right? Because you love that person and you want to do whatever you can to support that person. But I think there are a lot of times when we forget that we have our own needs as well. It's not a question that we ask ourselves very often, or at least I don't ask myself that often. But understanding what those needs are and being able to convey those needs, it allows the other person firstly to understand you a bit better. And at some point when you realize that you are not able to, that the other person cannot fulfill those needs, then it's a time when you have to ask yourself the difficult questions, right? Is there something you can do about it? Or if there is nothing you can do about it, then this person might not be the best for you. But I think it all starts with firstly understanding your own needs and secondly figuring out how to communicate that. Yeah. Who wants to go next? Practicing self-love in a relationship?
Okay, I can go. Since Nico is smiling. Yeah, I think, just from my own personal experiences, this idea of practicing self-love is probably quite similar to yours, Sean. And I think for me, it's just really, really understanding that you have to have some sort of healthy boundaries. You can't keep bending over backwards, right? Or be overly accommodating or enabling, right? Because maybe your intentions are good to maybe feel like, okay, you can be helping your partner, or perhaps if you just do a little bit more, maybe your partner would feel better. Things might change, right? But the truth is that if it comes to that point when you're giving and giving at the expense of losing yourself, right? It's so easy to feel constantly burnt out, right? And that's when you're not really present anymore. And even if you have a relationship, you're not really enjoying it. And so it's important to kind of have that sense of healthy boundaries, to realize that it's fine to give, right? But if you realize that it's been excessive, it's taking a toll, that maybe it's somewhat lopsided, right? You want to take a step back and go, what's this all about, right? Are there sort of dynamics going on that aren't really healthy? So yeah, boundaries.
Nico.
Yeah. So I think I would start by asking myself the question, how can I practice self-love in this relationship? And try to see if something comes up. Maybe there's really no obvious way that can be done, as Amerie mentioned. Maybe there are ways. There are things that you can do, and in fact, you might see that if you look, again, focus on your needs. Maybe there are things you can do, and communicate to your partner, or maybe do together. Or maybe it can be an activity that can be shared. Maybe a vacation somewhere. Or going to places that we change the way, the patterns of relationship, like get out of the routine, or something that we change, those support behavior that you might have, the way you support your partner and everything, and just get out of those repetitive patterns. And so there's that. And then things you can do on your own for yourself. And then I can need you to think about, do I have the time? Do I have the energy? And what do I need to do to get that time and energy? So I don't feel there are answers. Like, it's only just questions, actually. And the answers, they can only come from you. Like, there's really no, because they will change every time. I mean, in different situations, the answers might be different. And just asking the right question, I feel it's what's important there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. We have another comment. This is from Fahim Go. Fahim Go was my national coach last time. He says, great to see you there. You're the best. Thank you, Uncle. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. And Jack, thank you so much for the question. If you have more questions, anyone who's watching, feel free to type it in. And I can't say we'll give you answers or solutions, but we'll share our thoughts for sure. All right.
We'll talk for sure.
Yeah. I have a question. I mean, as we're like typing up the I guess synopsis for today's talk, right? I mean, one thing that came up was about type. Do we actually have a type? And this is something that we, with my friends as well, like we talk about, like, what is your type? Is there such a thing? What do you guys think?
Well, there is certainly a preconceived idea of the type of person that I like. I mean, type, I would say that there are two things, right? When we think about someone who's attractive, it's physical looks as well as character at some point. Physical looks, yeah, I believe that there is a certain style of a person that is more attractive to me. And beyond that, I think what takes over in the long run, it's really a convergence of values for me, and that I would feel is kind of like my type. Yeah, I think there are people who would say that, oh no, looks don't matter at all. For me, it does. It's not the most critical thing, but I don't have to date a supermodel, right? That's not my type.
Are you open to the possibility of dating?
Yeah, why not?
Or not? I don't know.
Yeah. Nico, what do you think? Is there a type?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like the earlier conversation. I mean, depends on the area. I mean, you mentioned like, physical aspects, personality, character. Personally, I see patterns in terms of like personality. Not really in terms of like physical appearance, like, although I think in terms of physical appearance, I tend to be very follow like the human standards, like in a sense, I'd be attracted to people with my level of attractiveness and above. If you see what I mean. It's like the standard psychology experiment thing where people rate, how they find attractive different pictures, and it won't surprise anyone that there's such thing as most people are attracted to people anyway. So I'm pretty much like in the norm there. Nothing interesting, and I do notice patterns in character, but also in ways that maybe people carry themselves. It's kind of vibe also, like more I would call the vibe there. Yeah, I tend to see patterns in what I find not necessarily attractive, but something that would make me want to talk to someone more or get to know someone more. Yeah. Yeah, that's for I would say the kind of first impression, I would say, thing. And then of course, values, but we discussed that. So I don't think that's a single. So I mean, if you were to, there's those different areas, and I think if you were to look at all the different people that would fit those different kind of areas, I don't think you would see a type. You would need to really break down different aspects to see, there's some patterns there, but it's if you were to look at a group of people, you would see maybe there's no type. I don't know. I think it's others might not see it.
Yeah.
Or you might not see it, and there might be one. That's possible as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes it's just really hard to define that, right? I mean, you meet someone, even though it's not with the intention of a date, right? You just chat with somebody, and sometimes I don't know. The only way I could describe it is like as what Nico said. It's just a vibe. It's just a really good feeling, and you start to ask, oh, that might be my type. I don't know. Is it a vibe, Emily? What do you think?
Go ahead.
What is
I
it my
share
turn
dating
now?
advice after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a type? Is there a type?
I mean, just looking at my own personal history, if I aggregate them and look through them, there is really no common denominator that I could think of. Like, definitely not across looks or personality. Interestingly, I mean, especially when I was younger, I had laundry lists of things I look for, but obviously the partner I ended up with would not be meeting the list that much. So the point is that laundry lists are useless, even though it makes you feel safe, right? To have some sort of idea, because at the end of the day, I agree, it is really the vibes they give off, the energy, something intangible. You can't really quite pinpoint, but it just works. And it could be someone you completely would have never imagined yourself to be with, but if it works, I mean, why not, right? And I was just thinking as well, if at the end of the day it could really be reduced to neurochemistry, right? I mean, all these books out there, Helen Fisher, for instance, in Why We Love, talks about really it's romantic love is a process of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine cocktail, I think. Am I right, Sean?
That would make sense.
Nico would know. Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, all these processes, but then
like the excitement thingy. Yeah.
Yeah. But
the
see,
drive thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the olfactory stuff, obviously. I mean, there's like a certain smell that you might be attracted to, right? Even though you wouldn't pick it up, it's not perceptible. But for some reason your brain does pick it up, and something just clicks in you. But see, I don't understand how this might work, say, in a long distance relationship. Like, why is it that there are couples out there who could like do this whole long distance thing, right? I mean, obviously they can't be there to physically like smell the other person, but it just works, right? I mean, that's I don't know if anyone has any answers here, but it's just something I was thinking about. A lot of these theories on neurochemistry assume the physical proximity of partners, and I'm just not sure if that's actually necessary. Yeah.
Nico, you wanted to share something earlier. Do you remember what it is?
Oh yeah. Just to go along with that. So I don't know, but I feel like, I mean, there's a possibility that, because the smell thing is really about genetics. So those studies that shows that people who like each other's smell actually they tend to have like complementary genetic material.
Yep,
So
yep, yep.
least overlap. So you tend to have less overlap in genome with people you like the smell, whom you like the smell, than people who you don't. And that's possible that you might have the same thing for facial features, and that maps on your gene, in the sense that you might like facial features people who are more different from you, and they also tend to have very different smell. So then you tend to like their smell as well. So that might explain. I don't know, but that might explain that, because face is also important, I feel like, in the way we connect. And yeah, my question. So just on the mention of laundry list, I think I disagree. I think they are useful.
Really?
But
You should see my
I
list.
think so. Especially as you get older, I feel that it's really helpful to sort through things, because we tend to, like, again, that changes with time, type, what kind of things we like in terms of maybe lifestyle, not necessarily like physical trait, but lifestyle, or vibe maybe. And then I feel that helps like sort through like old things you thought are still good for you but aren't anymore. So that's quite nice to see where you stand. I feel. But I would balance this out with a sound dating advice I got from a friend. We have shared widely, and that proved quite useful. It's like, so there's this laundry list thing where you really focus on like what you find attractive or what you would want in a partner. And the other advice is to just look at the person who are attracted to you. Just pay attention to the kind of people that would, communicate the fact that, they find you attractive, or they would hang out with you, and see what happens there. Yeah. And I think that's really useful, because in terms of like, in ways that sometimes we tend to find people who are attractive that do have problematic patterns, and are not good people to be attracted to. There even like a whole school of like dating, couple counseling, that explains to you that you shouldn't actually be going to people you are attracted to, because you will just keep reproducing patterns, and you should just take the time to know people you're not attracted to, or for which there's not that spark and that excitement, and explore that. So so going in that direction, actually looking at who's attracted to you, can be useful. Yeah.
Well, going along with this idea of getting to know people you're not attracted to, it kind of reminds me of like especially during school time, maybe like not so much now, but during school time, it's sometimes I ask my friends, hey, how do the two of you get together? And they're like, oh, actually, I don't like him. He liked me, but I don't like him. But then he kept chasing, and he kept going after. Then after a while, I say, okay, lor, try lor. And then after you try, somehow, hey, actually, I think he's not that bad. Then together until now, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's
a good story.
Yeah,
it's a good story, but I don't know. I don't think it happened in my case. So I think it's really different.
Yeah,
for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, on that point of the start of a potential romantic relationship, right? I mean, do you feel like there is a certain point where a person kind of realizes that maybe it's time to commit or settle, or I'm feeling something for this person? I how do you describe that? Do do you feel like at the point of dating, there's a certain point where you say that, okay, maybe I love this person?
So you're asking if there's a right time to say I love you?
No, like, do you like when you go through those feelings? Let's say I am hanging out with this person, right? How do you know when is the exact point of time where you feel like, maybe this is just not just friends, it's more than friends. I feel something more than just friendship for this person. Is there such a point?
Isn't it? It's quite subjective. Yeah. But we also know that the limerence phase or the honeymoon phase can last from like anything like 6 months to 2 years.
Honeymoon phase, 2 years?
Yeah, up to 2 years. I think I've read it somewhere. 6 months to up to 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so maybe meaning you might want to wait before you commit for at least.
But
to be fair, if you're really committed to starting, a long-term relationship, and yeah, that means just wait, really, to commit fully.
Oh,
No, I don't mean. You
naturally mean wait how long, right?
What I mean is like by committing fully, I mean asking to marry the person or whatever. That's why like heavy commitment. I'm not talking obviously, exclusively seeing that person.
But sometimes you just know, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you're wrong.
So it's subjective, really.
No, it is.
Right?
Yeah, it is. But I think I think what feels natural is that kind of like you at least for me, it's like I kind of lose interest in like trying to see other people, or it's more the way I relate to people. It's not so much about the clues I get, not so much about how I feel when I'm with the person, because I think it's harder to see that change over time. We don't have a lot of like, at least I don't have a lot of perspective in terms of how that changed that dynamics. To me, I tend to feel like it's kind of almost, yeah, I'm bad at seeing those changes, I suppose. But what's very clear is like, yeah, how I behave with people around me, like outside, like I might spend less time with my friends, not look at other people so much on the street, stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, okay, then maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more,
I once asked myself this question quite some years back, and one of the things that I kind of realized is it's at the point where I feel like my life or my feelings it's a little bit more reliant on the person than before, right? It's reliant on a certain response from that person. It's reliant on I don't know, that person being involved in my life in a certain way. Yeah, when in the past it's like, oh, okay lor, if you're there, good lah, not there also okay lor. Yeah, and that's the time when I start to feel like, okay, does that increase reliance, emotional reliance or psychological reliance or whatever that is, does that enhanced reliance actually mean that I kind of need this person in my life in some way, in some little way at least? Yeah. I don't know. It's just one of the thoughts.
You're describing attachment, isn't it? Because attachment is essentially this question, are you there for me?
Well, partially it's, are you there for me? But like, can I do without you in that sense? Yeah. How much of my life is dependent on this person? Yeah. Maybe it's the same idea, just, from a slightly different perspective on, yeah, I kind of need this person so that I'm happier, right? When this person is not there, I feel lonely. I feel, yeah, that's not how I would normally feel for a friend, like just a normal friend, right? Yeah. Okay. We have passed the hour mark, so I think let's maybe let's work on one final aspect in terms of romantic love and relationships, and I think it comes down to this topic of seeking help when things are not going well, right? Previously, in earlier part of the conversation, one of the suggestions that that I think it was Amerie who mentioned is that if things are not going well, one of the options is that you could speak to a therapist, speak to someone else. And I just wanted to get both your thoughts on when do you think is the right time to start, right? And is there such a thing as too late to resolve everything or anything? Yeah. Amerie, any thoughts?
I mean, I think that, if both partners in the relationship want to work on it, it's never too late. I mean, I've had couples who were on the brink of divorce, who sought help, and after working through a few sessions, right, have realized that all they needed to do was to rekindle the sparks, right, that lost connection they had with each other, and they didn't pursue with the divorce in the end. Yeah, I think a lot of if I just kind of think of the cases or couples I've worked with, a lot of times it's really just learning to reconnect and realizing that even after the honeymoon, right, there can be other ways to keep the sparks alive.
Okay, Nico, any thoughts? Is there a good time or a correct time to go to a therapist?
I don't know. I don't have experience with that, so I'm not sure I can speak to that. But well, in my sense, I mean, I agree with Amerie. Like, I don't think there's such thing as too late. As long as both person acknowledge the fact that just maybe acknowledge how late it is, because then you're like, okay, there might be a lot of work to do, a lot of things to work through, and that's never a pleasant thing to do. I mean, that's not pleasurable. I think if like process of therapy was pleasurable, people would be in therapy, people would be doing therapy much more. But present yourself with some challenges, and that might involve like both partners taking responsibility for things that happened a long time ago in the past repeatedly. That's asking a lot sometimes of a person to make such changes after a long time. So it's not, it can be challenging, but I think if both are clear on that, I don't see why not. And I think it's really, again, like there's no general advice that can be given there. I think there's just because it's just essentially like you would seek help when you've exhausted your own resources, essentially. And when you are work through any blocks to seeking help. So there's those both aspects, like maybe shame or whatever might prevent you from seeking help, or talking to your partner so you both can get helped. So and those limits are different from different people, and where you are in life. Maybe if a couple going through difficulties would have less resources, and so that's really I don't feel that there's much that can be done other than, again, checking with yourself regularly and getting a sense of where you're at. I think that's what can be useful. And just knowing there's that other possibility, getting help, outside help, or someone you trust, like a friend, someone, figure of wisdom that is there in your life and you trust.
Do you think it works if one party wants to resolve things and one party doesn't? And a bit of context. I mean, the context is that sometimes the point when people decide to seek help is when one person really wants to save things and the other person says, I've had enough. Right?
Yep.
Would that be too late?
Interestingly, the indication of how therapy might work or go for this couple is if they're still angry, right? If they're still fighting, actually they have a better chance of being successful in therapy as opposed to two partners who are completely checked out, right? If they're way beyond, they're just completely resentful, they're not really talking, they're not even fighting anymore, right? That's actually a bad sign. If they're angry, they care, right? And if they care, there is some hope.
Yeah, another challenge also I feel is that beyond like the fact that they've given up, is if there's any partner that has, or both, come at it from a place of like moral superiority, meaning if there's any kind of contempt, then it's going to be challenging. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. All right. Let's end off with one final question on a slightly higher note, which is this, right? So, when we think of romantic love, what are some of the wonderful ways that you feel like romantic love can affect someone? Yeah.
Should I quote from research?
Yeah, let's give the nerd answer first.
Okay. What's the nerd answer and the personal
Studies
answer
have
later?
shown that to be married, right? We're talking about a heterosexual relationship, right? To be married would actually benefit the man, but not the woman, right? So men actually live longer and they lead better lives if they're married to a woman. But for women, it doesn't make a difference. So we're cool on our own, but guys need women, right? So just putting it out there. But it's not from me, it's from research. It's true.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to add that these are averages, which means there are some women for whom marriage will be better than from their husband and the other way around.
Right, I must have been missing some details as well, right? But yeah, I mean, that's the general gist I obviously remembered.
and they still end up settling down because
Who?
like
Women or the men?
Women. Men.
Well, I guess women are nice, and I don't know. I mean, it's just really hard for me to come up.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why, because it's yeah. I wonder what the author of the article suggested as must have been a challenging article to sell.
Yeah, but I mean, I think from what I remembered, there was this whole argument talking about how women actually would help men develop more positive habits. I believe, right? And yeah, so I think they exert some sort of a positive influence, whereas yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to be disputed.
That's
right.
an interesting discussion to have, but that would lead us very far.
Yeah.
In terms of historically, like maybe other times when safety was an issue, like people had to care for their own safety. Maybe having being married to a man was the only option for having a standing in a community sometimes, feeling protected, and just you need a provider, like in traditional societies. Yeah. So that's
Okay. I think it's time for us to give our final thoughts. Just a final few statements. Dating advice, if you like, anything you would like to say about romantic love. And I think I'll start first, right? So I guess my final thoughts would be be open about your needs, I would say. Just from my personal experiences, if you're open about your needs and then find a way to communicate them, it allows you to make a better decision. All right, on where your relationship is and where it's going. Keeping things quiet and sucking it up, it's not going to help both parties. These are difficult conversations, but I think they are essential conversations, and that way you understand each other better. Yeah, and the feeling of love can be really, really lovely and reassuring, and the sense of security can be it can be something that you it's on a different level from everything else, right? That assurance. Yeah. Who wants to go next?
I don't have any wise words, but I can go.
okay.
be with the person you can live with and you can't live without. Yeah, I don't know. It just came to my head.
Nice
Yeah,
quote.
really. Yeah, I don't know if it's original, but it just in my head. And of course, I think it's important to be vulnerable in the relationship, because
Yeah.
I think the best relationships are the ones where you feel safe to be vulnerable in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that I think that we haven't. My sense is that we haven't had better tools than relationships to grow and transform as individuals. And so I feel like in meeting, like in being full-hearted in a romantic relationship, which means being as open as you can be, and in ways that make sense to you, that feels natural to you with your partner, and being as open as you can be and as loving as you can be towards yourself, and being as courageous as possible in feeling the emotions you feel, then that's why you can really transform yourself and the other person in the relationship. And I think doing so, you kind of have those ripples of like, care and love going through, people around you, like friends, family and strangers. I think that can be like the core of how you grow a broader, more open kind of sense of love for others. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our conversation. This is by far our longest conversation. Not that we've had that many, but it's we're like at 1 hour 23. Thank you everyone for joining us from wherever in the world you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening. Okay. And 2 weeks later we'll be back on same timing at 10:30 GMT +8, and we are discussing a different emotion. So we've done self-love, we've done romantic love. We are moving on to a different emotion, and that emotion is shame. All right. So join us again 2 weeks later as we chat about shame and the different aspects to it. And yeah, if you have questions about it, bring it on. We'll talk about it. And once again, thank you so much for spending your time with us. All right. So from all of us, bye-bye. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.